Thank you for keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a Thursday morning. You're tuning to the Smooth Breakfast. Ayokunmi here. And it's that time to get into the world of the papers. Take a look at what's been making the rounds across Nigeria in our dailies. This is Freshly Pressed, an interactive session as always. So we're looking forward to you joining us and, of course, sharing your thoughts on the stories we'll be talking about this morning. Analysis will definitely follow, and your messages and opinions as well. So, you can do that as always by sending those thoughts into us on WhatsApp 0981 That is the WhatsApp number. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. So I mentioned analysis, and of course, my analysts are in for the morning. Take a look at the papers, take a stab at the stories, and of course, give us clarity and explain it all, basically. Mr. C and Gbubemi are in this morning. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you in.
Good morning, Ayokunmi. Good morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Gbubemi. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, great to have you in. So, as always, a number of things that we have to talk about that are on the ground. And we're going to begin in the Premium Times newspaper. Mr. C, I'm bringing this one to your table, as it were. Now, the Nigeria's economic reforms since the current administration took office last May have boosted investors' confidence in the economy, helping the country secure $30 billion in commitment from foreign investors, President Bola Tinubu said on Wednesday. Now, it was stated that the achievement demonstrates that, I'm quoting here, that our policies yield positive results, making Nigeria increasingly attractive for domestic and international investors. End of quote. Now, the president, who was represented by the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, stated at the 2024 Comptroller General of Customs Conference in Abuja. So basically, Mr. C, the president is saying that some deals have been done, and of course, $30 billion in commitment has been secured from foreign investors. And it seems like 30 billion is a very popular number because I recall during the Independence Day address by the president, he had mentioned that thanks to the reforms of his administration, that the country had attracted over $30 billion worth of foreign direct investments in the past year. Now, looking at all this, okay, this monies that are looking to bring into the country, it's a good thing if it actually happens. Well, my question is Nigeria in a good space in terms of being an enabling environment for these investors to actually come in? That's a question on the lips of many Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayo. And I'll start this way. So, as you rightly said, the first time we had this figure of 30 billion was during the Independence Day speech where the president mentioned the sum. Subsequent fact checks did reveal that it wasn't, that the sum wasn't accurate, and that what he referred to were commitments or pledges, which typically expected to be made within a period ranging from 5 to 8 years, but that what actually did come in was about 6.14 billion US dollars. Now, we see that the NSA, who represented the president at the Comptroller General of Customs Conference in Abuja, has repeated this figure, repeated this fact. And to answer your question, it's a perspective question, really, because it depends on which side of the perspective, which side of the divide you're on. Now, if you're on the divide of the government in the sense that you're a public official or you're a supporter or sympathizer of the government, you want to equate commitments to actual investments. However, if you sit on the other side of the divide, you then know that a commitment is a pledge. And until it is honored, you cannot put it in the bank, you cannot count it as done. So let me break this down for the benefit of our listeners. If I pledge to give Ayo the sum of 100 million pounds sterling, right? It's a pledge. That's all that it is. Ayo cannot go to town and then say that on the back of this, I want to buy this house, I want to buy this number of shares, I want to buy these number of cars because Mr. C has promised me 100 million pounds sterling. Now, Ayo can only begin to count that money when that money hits his account. Now, the president is desirous of building $1 trillion economy, and he's made no pretense. He hasn't hidden this ambition, and he hopes to achieve this by the year 2030. Now, to do this, he's primarily looking towards Asia, and two countries stand out, India and China. He's also looking towards the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and he's hoping to secure a $5 billion trade facility, which he will use to improve oil and gas infrastructure and other pressing needs. Now, all of this is nice because the truth of the matter is we cannot generate the sums needed to drive the economy forward by ourselves. We need foreign investment. However, again, the government is not being completely open and transparent about this because if the money you're going after, clearly it has to be clean money. Why is there a difficulty in identifying the proposed pledgers? The pledgers are people or institutions or countries that have pledged to give Nigeria money. If you're confident talking about the sum, you should, in a sense, be able to give us an idea of how much was pledged and by who. Now, of course, there are no timelines for when we expect to see these monies, but they remain confident in their approaches that the reforms they've implemented are yielding the desired fruits and are yielding the desired results. Now, whilst they're okay to look at it from that perspective because they have information we're not privy to, on the street, it's a different story, right? So they say there's lights, everything's, we're beginning to see results. But on the streets, the common man in Nigeria, from Afikpo to Damaturu to Tudunwada to Wari to Oshobo to Abiyakuta, is not seeing these fruits or is not seeing this light at the end of the tunnel. Because what is the point of executing a policy if the common man on the street will not get or enjoy the desired benefits? So again, his plan to grow the economy into $1 trillion economy is fantastic. And I do wish for the benefit of every Nigerian that this comes to pass. This is not even about politics because we need the economy to grow to match or even outstrip the population growth rate. However, we need to know where the money is coming from. We need to know when we should start to expect it. Because if at the end of the day, worst case scenario, none of this money comes, what's the plan B? So we're expecting money from Ayo and Gbubemi. But if the money doesn't come from Ayo and Gbubemi, who are we looking at to get the money? Are we looking at an Ikemesit, for example? Are we looking at an AB, for example? Are we looking at a Lagbaja, for example? So we need to know what's going on. But this is good news on paper. Let's keep our fingers crossed and let's hope that it begins to translate into things the ordinary man on the street can begin to enjoy, given the fact that Christmas is around the corner, Easter is around the corner, and Nigerians need a break from the intense living conditions they've been exposed to over the past 18 months.
Most definitely. I mean, growing the economy is one very important thing for this administration, and of course for Nigerians as well, and of course growing the nation. And you can't grow the nation without bringing in some infrastructural development as well, which takes me to our second story this morning, coming out of The Guardian. And we are coming to you with this one. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has announced its intention to conduct a thorough investigation into allegations of mismanagement and corruption, within Nigeria's electricity sector. Now, this was revealed by Mr. Ola Olekoyede, the EFCC chairman, during a meeting with members of the House of Reps Committee on Anti-Corruption at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. But what is really interesting in this particular story is when he disclosed that EFCC has uncovered a worrying trend. Now, over the past 20 years, no ministry, department, or agency, that's MDA, of government has executed up to 20% of capital projects outlined in their budgets. Now, he identified this lack of project implementation as a significant hindrance to the country's infrastructural development. Now, let's first of all leave the messenger here. Let's talk about the message. I mean, over the past 20 years, no MDA, none, according to him, has executed up to 20%. And we're wondering why we are where we are.
Yeah, so to be honest, I find that quite shocking as well. I've tried to cast my mind back to think about projects that may have been commissioned at the federal level. Um, I, I I would like to think that there are at least a few projects, that have been commissioned, in the last 20 years. Now, whether those projects were started within 20 years and then completed is another story, which I can't exactly speak to. But then again, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I assume that they have, their information at hand. That would be a very worrying trend. And for this to have gone on for the last 20 years, definitely this investigation should have started much, much earlier. So we're talking about holding people accountable, up from the ministers to the permanent secretaries, the heads of the agencies, all the people involved. I don't know how long this investigation or audit or whatever they choose to call it is going to take. But it would be interesting to see what the results are regarding this. It would also be interesting to see. I hope that they would be able to follow the money, and it would be interesting to see where that money has gone because clearly, if they're saying that only 20% of the projects have been executed, or 20% of each project has been executed, technically we can assume that, much more funds have been committed to those projects, which means that they've spent less on those projects. Now, so where has the excess of that money gone? What has happened to it? So it would be nice for them to also follow that money trail. Now, going back to the story on the power sector and the investigations into allegations of mismanagement and corruption. This is also very good. They said they set up a new fraud investigation unit or something, and fraud risk assessment directorate, which is collaborating with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. And they are at the forefront of uncovering all of the allegations of mismanagement within the electricity sector. I don't know if you have light at home. I do.
Well, there was this morning.
Okay, so
I can't guarantee right now.
The pattern has been the light comes for 20 minutes, it goes for like 20 hours, comes back for 10 minutes, goes for like 10 hours. There's been no lights, and at this point in time, the national grid, there've been jokes about how the national grid has just decided this year is my year, and I'm just going to be taking rest because I've been overworked. The national grid, isn't tattered. We talked about how equipment, infrastructure within the electricity sector is largely obsolete. Now, they've come and said, as part of their investigations, they found out that people have been paid to purchase certain items, and they've gone ahead and purchased either items of substandard quality or, inadequate numbers of the items, which is quite worrying. You understand? And you begin to wonder, yes, we've talked about the challenges. Let's look at the discourse, for example. They talked a lot about funding challenges, where they expect to get money from, which was why they went ahead and pushed for the deregulation of the band A sector. So those on band A are paying for it now. But even at that, that's not enough. So we can see that not just within distribution, but transmission generation, there are issues, and transmission is under the federal government, generation private sector. But with these agencies, they also interface with these companies rather, they also interface with agencies of government. So it would be nice to see, what the investigations have uncovered relating with these agencies. I assume that they've also stepped into probably looking at how the private sector has, quote unquote, colluded with them, because it's very likely that that has happened. So it would be nice to see the results of this investigation. But more importantly, it would be nice for us to see that there are consequences to these actions. We talk about this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about investigations, this, that finding.
And we never see the end.
Exactly. What happens to people who are culpable? We don't see that, and it's very important that people who are found culpable for issues like this, face the full extent of the law, so they're made as an example to everyone else.
Right. Very important that there's punishment at the end of these things. I mean, there's a lot of anyhowness that goes on in Nigeria. Tinu on WhatsApp says, are the heads of the respective MDAs not reporting to people? Do they not have performance reviews? EFCC should rest the bag. Investigation that would only result in refunds and new prosecution. Exactly what you just alluded to. I beg. Every day the grid is always going down. In the same country, should someone not have lost his or her job? Enough of the excuses from these elected and appointed leaders. All right, thank you for your message to Mr. C. Let's get back in and talk about some security and or insecurity matters here. Coming out of the Daily Post. Now, the Interior Minister, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, says the federal government is making frantic efforts to combat the security challenges plaguing the country. Now, he made this statement on Channels TV program saying that the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badr, Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa, are losing sleep over the issue, saying nobody is resting and they're all making frantic efforts to deal with the security situation or the insecurity situation. Now, I mean, in the past 18 months or thereabouts, there have been some successes in terms of dealing with some of the terrorist bandits and so on and so forth. And of course, we have this new group, the Lukarawa and so on and so forth. It doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, but more can definitely be done, Mr. C.
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So again, this is another story that can be interpreted depending on which side of the divide you belong to. Now, in the first instance, this is a reassuring statement from the government through one of its senior officials that, look, we're not resting on our oars, we're not twiddling our thumbs, we're working day and night tirelessly to ensure that the security situation in the country is improved, is enhanced, and that the citizenry should rest assured that the government has their best interests at heart. Now, that is one way of interpreting what has been done, and that the people should also remember what the situation was like before the present administration came on board. I guess the present administration admits they're not where they should be in terms of security, but that it's not as terrible as it was before. Now, like I said, that is one way of looking at this story. If you belong to the other divide, the divide that has a trust issue with the government, then it raises a number of questions. Question number one, if this is the results or the output we get when you guys are losing no sleep and working tirelessly, then we shudder to think what will happen if you are not working at all, what the state of the nation will be like. Now, two, the second question is, we're not interested in whether you're sleeping or you're sleeping with one eye closed or both eyes closed. We want to know what steps generally you can release or give or share that are being taken to ensure that people can travel safely within Nigeria by road without having to constantly think about being abducted or kidnapped forcefully. Now, there's no gainsaying the fact that the security situation is untenable. It's really dire, and traveling by air has increasingly become a super luxury given the prices being posted by the few airlines that are still in operation. Now, added to this, let's take on a statement by the NSA, who said that they're going to chase out the Lakurawa group that has sprung up in Kebbi and Sokoto State, that they will drive them out of the country. And he says that, look, nobody has dared the president and won, and that the president always wins. Now, so when we marry both statements together, this is strong, confident talk from the administration, which is designed to give the right signals, not only to the local community, to the stock exchange, and even to foreign investors that, look, the government is tough on security and is not downplaying it and wants to ensure as much as possible that Nigeria is safe for investors to come in. So let's move away from the tough talk, the rhetoric. Let's get down to brass tacks. If previous governments and this current government could not chase away Boko Haram or ISWAP, what are the chances they will chase away the Lakaroa group. I don't see it happening. One, where the army is spread so thin across 27 states of the Federation at the moment that it's going to be a tall order, it's going to be a tall stretch, asking them to concentrate all their efforts to chase these guys out. Because when you say you're going to chase them out, that means you're going to downplay or suspend some other operations to face these guys. Now, what if this is a distraction and all these terror groups are working together?
I was going to say, okay, looking at where we've been coming from up until this point, and we've seen, okay, this isn't actually working, whatever it is that is being done. Isn't this a time to then say, okay, we've seen that a new group in quotes has sprung up. We need to change our approach. I mean, will a change of approach make a difference here?
It should. Now, this is not even a new group. The group has been in existence for 6 years in Nigeria. It's not a new group. Now, it calls into question our intelligence gathering procedures and then what we do when the intelligence is gathered. Now, clearly, if you've tried something over a period of time and it hasn't worked, you have to conduct a review and then try to understand what you have done wrong or what you are not yet doing and see what the impediments are towards implementing what you should be doing. Now, the service chiefs have been in place, and we can't say there's been a marked improvement in security anywhere in the country. Yes, Lagos and Abuja are seemingly protected in a bubble. That's why the nation is not all up with running with placards and shouting. But imagine a situation where you can't conveniently travel, say, from Abuja to Kaduna without your heart in your mouth, without you saying prayers the whole stretch of the journey and giving thanks to your creator or whichever spiritual deity you believe in once you arrive at your destination.
Right.
I would have thought the service chiefs would have been replaced or been given marching orders, but here we are. It's really a tough stretch. Now, is this going to improve next year? I sincerely want it to improve. 927 Nigerians lost their lives, I think, in the first 6 months of this year through attacks on the various highways. Now, that is a sum that is too many, right? No Nigerian should have to struggle thinking about whether it's safe to travel within the country. In other countries, you can travel from one end to the other end safely. You're not thinking about being attacked or being abducted. But here is the reverse. And again, it begs the question, what is the value of a Nigerian life? The other day, Mr. President was in Saudi Arabia talking about the dignity of life and how countries that promote the dignity of life are now concerned about the Israel-Hamas situation. Again, in Nigeria, what is the value of our lives? What are we doing?
All right, let me do some messages here. This is Olamilekon says, there's a saying, proper preparation prevents poor performance. It's glaring that this government has nothing to offer but lies, excuses, eye service, and so on. Imagine the president and the vice president saying they understand the hardship and nightmare Nigerians are in. Long message, Dio. I have to just keep it at that. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts. This is from Abayami. Abayami says, the EFCC should move beyond merely informing us about wrongdoings. We want to see individuals publicly identified, arrested, and prosecuted, and have their assets seized. What purpose does making announcements serve if there is no action to hold officials accountable, including permanent secretaries and ministers, regardless of their status or political affiliation? He further says, Mr. Interior, sir, and that's the Minister of Interior, sleepless nights come with the responsibility of being appointed as the Minister of the Interior and more. This applies to all current ministers and officials in government. D from Ikeda says, Christians have been waiting for the coming of the Savior. Nigerians have been waiting for the Siemens contract. Hopefully, we won't have to wait for the $30 billion commitments from foreign investors the government has informed us about. So we hope we don't have to wait so long. Let me see. This is from Rexy. Rexy says, the fact is foreign direct investment into Nigeria has shown a promising trend in 2024. The Bola Tinubu administration actually pulled in over 10% of that $30 billion target in the first quarter of this year. According to the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, that's NESG, Nigeria's foreign investment inflows surged to a 4-year high of $3.4 billion in the first quarter of 2024, a significant increase from $1.1 billion in the same period of 2023.
Okay, so two things very quickly, 30 seconds. The Siemens contract is ongoing and it's been done at least 60, 65%. What's left is about 6 mobile units of the MVA transformers. And then with regards to the investments, yes, Rex is correct to a certain extent. We did pull in $6.14 billion, and I did allude to that. Thanks.
All right, let's talk about our friends at the NLC. They are in the news once again, taking the story out of the Vanguard. Now, there's growing tension among states yet to implement the 70,000 naira minimum wage following the December 1 strike notice given by the Nigerian Labour Congress to workers in defaulting states to commence the indefinite strike. As of the end of October, 24 states had yet to start implementation, despite the federal government's promise to organize labor for it. I mean, 70,000 naira minimum wage. I mean, that is take-home pay that really can't take you home. And 24 states have still not implemented. NLC have said December 1st, if you don't, we are going on strike. Now, first of all, are the workers who are affected, will they even take the NLC serious at this point, bearing in mind the recent situations where the NLC has been concerned?
Well, they might take them seriously. Because if they're not being paid minimum wage, it might be just another opportunity for them to sit down and fake protest, quote unquote. What we need to realize is that even before the new minimum wage of 70,000 was announced, many states were not paying the old minimum wage. And the old minimum wage came into force, I think, in 2021 or 2022, I can't quite remember. But not a lot of states were even paying that old minimum wage. I think very, 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 very importantly, all states have to pay because it's a loan now.
Right.
But a lot of states will come and say, oh, we have revenue challenges, we don't have enough money, blah, blah, blah. And we always say all of the time, it's not necessarily about, what they have coming in. We also need to look at what they have going out and where they're spending that money on. A lot of all the states, if we critically look at their budgets, there are ways that they can create more money for their states. But then again, I'd like to tie this into viability of states. A lot of states are dependent, most of the states in Nigeria, actually, and I think there was a report last week, a few weeks ago, that said only about 2 or 3 states can exist without collecting FAC allocations.
Yes.
A lot of the states who even receive the FAC allocation spend this on salaries largely. So sometimes I wonder whether it's rocket science, because in my opinion, I think that it should be easy, or it should be a challenge for the state governors to look at how they need to ramp up, revenue within their state. So whether you're collecting more taxes, whether you're creating opportunities for more businesses to thrive so that you can gain more income, whether you're exploiting your natural resources, which a lot of states have, to be able to earn more income. But we don't necessarily see that, So most likely, by the deadline, NLC will go on strike in some of these states because they will still not have paid them.
Let's round up with a couple of messages here. Z-Man from Bristol says, Mr. C says we should keep our fingers crossed. We have had them crossed for so long now that we cannot untangle or uncross them anymore. Anyone who has hope on these charlatans in charge of the country now are in for a long thing. I had to, should I say, edit that message to make it radio worthy. Ayo from Festox. Oh my goodness, Ayo, you're my namesake, so I will not fight you on this one. Yes, it's cold in here, hence my winter approach to things. So thank you for your message. Tony from Marine Beach says the government allows the influx of foreigners with alien practices, leaves them to recruit and fester until they become hydra-headed and begin to make attempts at curbing their menace instead of nipping them at the bud and locking our borders. Doing things the same way and expecting a different result. As we speak, there may be other groups in their infancy. All right. Michael says, every army in the history of the world is always eager to prove itself. I believe the same of ours. The questions we should ask is, who are the people holding ours back from doing what they know how to do best? Okay. Max says, claiming to lose sleep over insecurity is nothing else than what it is, grandstanding. Considering the NSA's statement, it appears he and all others are bothered about the optics on the president rather than the safety of Nigerians who are being killed. It feels like let's cover the king with fine robes so they don't see his filth. What we run is not a democracy, it's a monarchy. Right, thanks for your thoughts. Joseph Meunier says it's unfortunate how government constantly continues being manipulative about everything. We constantly keep hearing about foreign investments, yet the government keeps borrowing. Also, imagine latest news of the rot in the Hajj Commission over the 90 billion naira given for pilgrimage. No government parastatal is excluded, but the bitter truth is just for information. Only, absolutely no punishment for impunity or wrongdoing. And Abayami says the NLC should take a firm stance and shut down any state that fails to implement the required minimum wage. State civil servants support the NLC in enforcing wage standards. Given that the states now have a 45% increase in FAC allocation since President Tinubu took office, revenue constraints should no longer be a valid excuse for not meeting these obligations. And on that note, okay, on YouTube, Emmanuel, thank you for the message and the feedback as well. We'll definitely work on that. Much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. C. and Rumi, for joining me this morning on Freshly Pressed. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And Lagos, let's close out the week fruitfully and productively, and let's look forward to a joyful weekend. Bye.
Amen. Amen to that. And thank you for sharing your messages this morning and keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1. Don't go anywhere because at 8:15 is all about entertainment on the grapevine. And of course, a special guest will be joining us. Don't go anywhere. All right, all right, all right.